Whatever your sport is, if you can be good at sprinting and good at jumping and probably good at changing direction, and then you get reasonably strong, like those things are going to help you be better in your sport regardless of what it is.
I am Judd Lienhard, former Army Ranger, college linebacker. I've been a strength and performance coach for over 15 years. Let's get into it.
If you get better at anything, you're going to get better at everything. Whether it's you sprint and you get faster from that, it's going to make you stronger. Strength does not equal force. That diverse movement challenge gameplay, that's the foundation. Yeah, I think that's missing from a lot of kids' lives now. And then it's also missing from people like us, like our communication. What does the science actually say on fascia versus what are the gurus saying? Building structure is functional.
Yeah.
Like all your muscle action is driven by proteins binding and generating tension. Like that's how you move. It's a trap that people run into where it's like squatting, deadlifting, this transfers to my sport because it makes me stronger. Okay, but sprinting doesn't transfer. Moving your legs faster and increase your stiffness capabilities, like ability to bounce off the ground quickly. It's like if you develop those physical qualities, that has an influence on your technique.
All right, so I'm here today with Daniel Bach, and you might know him as Jump Science or Speed Science on Instagram. I have had the pleasure of working with him for, is it a decade? It's been a long time.
Been 11 years, actually.
11 years?
Yep.
One of the best trainers / coaches I've ever met. I learned a lot from him personally. He is not a household name or a micro celebrity, as I AA'd myself recently, and they called me a micro celebrity, which is pretty embarrassing.
Interesting.
But he is extremely highly respected within the industry. I have a lot of respect for him. I listen to everything he says. I love his content. It's some of the best content on Instagram. It's very scientific based. He's a very cerebral trainer that understands practical implications. And I highly encourage you to listen to this because I feel like it's going to be extremely valuable for you if you're a coach, a trainer, or just somebody trying to stay in shape. But Daniel, I'm happy you sat down with me today. And
yeah, happy to be here.
I appreciate it, bro.
Yep, absolutely, man.
So you want to give a little bit of your background, man, so we get started?
Sure. So just have kind of a typical 90s kid sports background, like played a lot of neighborhood sports, a lot of variety there, but I ended up pretty obsessed with basketball when I was younger, and that ended up kind of taking over my athletic career. As part of that, it's actually a thing I regret, by the way. I wish I would have been a little more football and track in there, but
you'd have been a good tight end, man.
Yeah, I know.
Or a pretty good thrower.
Heard that 1,000 times. Yeah. Yep. I was actually really good at baseball when I was like 9.
Yeah.
But as part of the basketball obsession, I obviously got the idea of wanting to dunk, and so starting around age 13, I was dunking on a low rim in the driveway, and then I had gotten access to an old weight set that I had actually in my bedroom. It was one of the old, just like a steel bar that you slide the salt, or the cement plates onto, and then you do the little crank thing to tighten down the clips. And so I was doing squats and calf raises down in my bedroom, and went on this jump training journey where I ended up, I gained like a foot of vertical in a year when I was 13 to 14. Ended up dunking in 8th grade, and
that's first of all, the performance aside, that's very unusual for somebody that young to take a systematic approach to their training like that, which I can totally see it knowing you personally, but it's extremely unusual. And people that haven't, you got to go to Jump Science or Speed Science and watch this dude dunk. It's insane to see it in person.
Appreciate that. But so yeah, I got hooked on the training process early on. Just got that experience of like, wow, your body can really change and get so much better at things over time. And yeah, I've looked back on it like, why at 13 was I doing squats 5 days a week? Like what?
Most of us have the people that are really good at stuff. They always have that origin story where it's something ridiculous that just people. It might not have been the optimal way to do it, but the effort alone, it had some results.
Yeah, and the consistency, I was ruthless, and I just don't, I don't know where that came from exactly, but yeah, that teenage male energy to just move and exercise, I put it into a good spot.
Now I just try to brush my teeth every day.
Right. So, from that, I continued to try to jump higher, and by the time I was 16, I was like, I want to be a trainer.
Wow.
It was cool. It was early on.
Still want to be a ninja, I think, at 16.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Maybe I'd given up on that dream by then. But.
So it was early on. I just had gotten hooked on that. And kind of went from there. Had sort of a mildly successful basketball career. Like I was a good high school player. I played 1 year of D3 ball in college, but then ended up just getting back to like jump training and dunking. And when I was, I think, 21 was when the first time I tried to like train a friend to dunk, and had a little bit of success there with a few of my friends. And then, started filming some stuff for some YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Some other people got interested in training because, some results that happened with a couple of my friends. And so then it turns out I ended up with this little like jump training squad on campus at University of Wisconsin La Crosse. And from that was born Jump Science. The YouTube videos like got a little bit of traction back then, and people were interested and wanted, they had questions and stuff. I started answering questions, writing little blog posts, things like that to try to help people. And then, it just kind of grew from there. And, that's my training origin. It was after college. I had a year doing like working with a basketball and track team back at my high school in Milwaukee, actually. And then it was after that year that I connected with Matt and moved down here. And that was at age 26.
Damn, it's been a while.
So 11 years ago. That was 2014.
It's crazy.
And so before I moved down here, I had gotten a little bit of experience working with some track athletes and had success there, and really kind of got interested in that because the whole sport's dedicated to athletic development. You know, it's just all about being fast, jumping high, jumping far.
It's easy to measure results because there's not a lot of external variance too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everything is time-based, distance-based. You can really tell what's working and what isn't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And the clock is the same everywhere. So it's not like, oh, well, you just, it's a worse competition or something.
You've probably actually you've had a lot of success training basketball players. You probably are actually by this point have had more success with track athletes. I feel like you're more specialized in that now. So, I mean, you're not really, this is like a word of caution before people judge trainers by how they look. Like, you don't look like a track athlete. You're not built like a sprinter. You manage to make yourself fairly fast, even though you don't have the like genetics to be an elite sprinter, but your ability to train sprinters is top notch, right? So
yes,
we don't always look like what we're best at training other people for, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of a frustration now because I know wanting to do more in the track and field space, like not having the background in it is it's a damage to the way people perceive me.
Yeah.
Right. Most track coaches compete in track and then they like get an assistant job under one of their former coaches, and then it just kind of goes from there. Yeah. Me, it's more of a, sort of arrived there through jump training, getting an exercise science degree, getting some experience coaching sprinters. And then at Acceleration, I've had the opportunity to get more of that speed focused training. And now, 11 years of experience later, and now it's like, I think I'm pretty good at this.
It really is a cool environment, man, because it's every day. I mean, he calls it the lab, and we can kind of roll our eyes at that, but there really is a lab aspect about it that we get to experiment daily, and how much we experiment is on us. And after 11 years of one-on-one training, it gave you a pretty unique opportunity to get a lot of experience and a lot of hours developing athletes, see what works and see what doesn't. And just a word of warning too, like, in my experience, like really good natural athletes or people that are naturally good at a sport don't always make the best coaches.
Yes.
Because they don't know how to relay the information, and they don't even really know why they were good at what they did.
Exactly.
It comes so naturally, right?
Exactly. It's like, they just had to do these workouts and then they just got really fast.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, what if you cut your talent level in half? Now what do you have to do?
Yeah.
And unless they've, again, had some education and maybe gone through a bunch of experience coaching untalented people, they may not really know. They may just be like, well, no, you just got to do these workouts.
So it makes me think of Ricky. Is Ricky still there?
No, he
I haven't seen him in a while, but I love Ricky. And Ricky is one of the best natural athletes like I've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
Even though the dude didn't love to work out, right?
No, he wasn't. Yeah,
but
he was not on the grind like we are.
He's an example. And like, no hate on Ricky because I love Ricky, but like, he's so naturally good at stuff. When he would go to tell a kid, he'd like demonstrate it once and then get frustrated when the kid couldn't get it. And but that's who I always think of as Ricky. When it's just like he wouldn't break stuff down, he just demonstrate it. Like
Yep.
the dude like kind of had a gut and what barely worked out, but then he would like every once in a while he would just do something and look like the most fluid athlete on the world. You know?
Like he could warm up and he'd like do a 20-yard sprint or something. He'd be like, that's why he played D1 football. Okay.
That's awesome. Like once an athlete, there's always that athlete in you, man. It's funny. But yeah, go on. I'm sorry, man.
No, it's good. So yeah, there's the experience working with a variety of athletes and a variety of sports, and then also at the young ages.
Yeah,
it's like you really start to learn what are all the pieces that have to go into this. And actually coming from my background of, I had a lot of success getting my vertical up with strength training, and then also with the people that I trained in my early years, like had a lot of success with just helping them get stronger. And I, at age 25 was probably more sold on like, oh yeah, if you just get people stronger, it just makes them more athletic. Well, apply that to somebody who's not talented and doesn't really have a great athletic foundation yet. Someone who's 13, but it's not one of these kids that has like been playing sports since they were 5.
Yeah.
And then you start to realize like, oh man, if I just like have them do squats, like let's say goblet squats and lunges, it doesn't really make them immediately more athletic like it did with me when I, had 10 years of like sport and basketball and jumping history. Yeah. Now you add some strength that works really well. Take that history away, add some strength, and they got better at their goblet squats, but they still don't know how to run.
I agree.
They still have no coordination to jump. Like,
I believe both sides can be true. I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Unless the strength aspect is like a limiting factor. And then strength can make the world lighter, which helps you express athleticism. There's a point where if a kid is so weak, like they can't do a walking lunge, it's like, well, you can't even really begin to express your athleticism until we get a base level of strength here.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've taken that and we've totally forgotten what the fundamentals of athletic performance are. And some people just still believe that if you get somebody stronger, they're going to become more athletic. And we have seen that not to be the case.
Right. Yeah. So 100 times over.
Yeah.
And you can see it sometimes just like from the start, maybe it doesn't make a big difference. But then there's also, certainly with the football guys, okay, 7th grade, they start lifting and it works wonders.
Yeah.
8th grade, they're lifting and it works wonders. 9th grade, same thing. By the time they get to 10th grade, it's like, okay, they got a double body weight squat. They've been getting faster this whole time, but now they stop getting faster. And now, unless you like intervene and prioritize speed more, they may never get faster.
Yeah, getting their squat 50 pounds heavier is going to do nothing for them. It probably will make them slower.
Yeah.
And like strength is one of those things. It's like protein. It's very important to a certain point, and then it's almost not important at all. But at the same time, do that process unless the athleticism is being developed concurrently. And I think we agree on this, that like strength training gets prioritized over athletic development, and people they think those things are synonymous far too often.
Right. Depending on which community you're in.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly in the football world, like the entire off season tends to be dedicated to strength more so than anything else. And it's an issue. It's definitely an issue.
Totally agree. I mean, when I was growing up, I noticed kids had skill deficits, but general physical capabilities. Like they had good grip strength and they were naturally strong and jumping around and everything like that. Now it's almost like they lack general athletic abilities, but they're very skilled at one thing and also very weak. Like grip strength is an issue for a lot of kids and things like that. It's like compounding on both ends of the spectrum where they might go in and practice their pitching or their throwing, but general athleticism just really hasn't been developed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you lose the variety when you specialize.
Yeah.
And when everything is organized, so yeah, I think baseball is a one. Volleyball comes to mind, where you have these girls that they start year-round volleyball at like age 11 or something, and they get so programmed into just playing volleyball. And it's like, yeah, you can watch them pepper and you can watch them swing, and like they got volleyball skills.
Yeah.
Ask them to jump off one foot. Yeah. And sometimes they literally can't even make themselves do it. Like if they step into it, even with just like one or two steps, like they have a hard time even just attempting a 1 foot jump. And it's like, this is an issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had girls where it's like, okay, I need you to stand on 1 foot and then just repeatedly hop on it because I cannot get you to like take 2 steps and jump off of one leg.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's just a huge lack of variety and just like you were saying, general athleticism where, yeah, show me a task and I can figure out how to do it.
It's like a form of physical intelligence too that some people from a young age have. And I think you'll agree with this when you train, especially back up just a little bit, we've trained high level college and NFL and professional athletes, right? But as far as professionalism goes, our experience training kids, in my opinion, I think you'll agree, has been incredibly valuable.
Oh, yeah.
Like learning how to teach a 9-year-old something, like starting from that, people that aren't natural athletes, learning how to teach them has made us much better coaches. And secondly, training athletes from a broad spectrum of sports, the crossover between one sport and another, even sports that might not look similar on the surface, like tennis and playing linebacker, there's so many movement pattern similarities there and crossover benefits to all these sports, that kids will get just by, like basketball is one of those sports where like it will make you better at almost every other sport. You know what I mean?
Yes. If the basketball is the complement.
Yes.
But then at the same time, somebody who only plays basketball, ask them to sprint.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a catastrophe, right?
Yes.
Or that's another one of those lessons I learned is like, okay, I at some point started doing plyometrics and picked it up pretty fast, was able to do it pretty well, and had some decent spring. This is like college age, and it was like, oh yeah, well I play basketball, so I kind of have that. But as it turns out, basketball itself doesn't necessarily develop great reactivity or elasticity, or whichever word you want to use for it. And so I remember, okay, now I'm working with a 14-year-old basketball player or 15, 16. And it's like, yeah, they play basketball all the time. And yet I ask them to do pogos and it's like, it takes them a really long time to get off the ground.
Yeah.
Or I ask them to do a high skip and it's like, I want to like look away,
It's funny because people say the word plyometric and it's just one category in their mind, where jumping and hopping, there's a broad spectrum of skill that needs to be developed there. You know what I mean? And just one form of jumping is not going to cover that.
Yeah. Well, and the sport of basketball itself, like a lot of times doesn't have a whole lot of jumping, at least not like maximal jumping. It's a lot of shuffling and agility and then just like, quick little pops off the ground to like grab a rebound or something. But yeah, you'll have basketball players and you ask them to do an approach jump and they have no coordination for doing that.
But enhancing those abilities will actually help their ability to play basketball.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is funny because we believe wholeheartedly that strength training can help with activities that don't seem anything like gym strength training, but bouncing and full speed sprinting, because we look at those sports and they don't have a lot of that. We think that somehow that those won't transfer where strength training was. Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing in our minds, right? Like,
yeah, it's a trap that people run into where it's like, yeah, okay, so strength training transfers, like squatting, deadlifting, this transfers to my sport because it makes me stronger, but okay, but sprinting doesn't transfer because it makes you
reach
faster.
Full speed because you don't reach full speed in your sport.
Right. Or jumping as high as you can, like that's not going to just help you be more powerful in general.
I've had people like swimmers, right? A swimmer will be in there doing back squats, which to me seems about the furthest thing from swimming, right? Which I still understand the value of to a back squat to swimming, right?
Yeah.
But then if somebody sees a swimmer doing a full speed sprint or doing pogo hops, they're like, why are they doing that? That's nothing like, it's like, well, why are they back squatting then?
Right.
Why aren't they just in the pool all the time?
Yeah. There's no barbell in the pool either. So, but yeah, so it brings to mind the sort of the philosophy that I've kind of been like mulling over this in my head for recent years. It's just like the athlete first mentality of, okay, whatever your sport is, if you can be good at sprinting and good at jumping and probably good at changing direction, and then you get reasonably strong, like those things are going to help you be better in your sport regardless of what it is.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, it's just this, push from me, like, yeah, let's just try to be an athletic person. And then you can apply that to baseball or volleyball or lacrosse or basketball or whatever you want to do. But if you just play your sport and strength train, you're cutting out all these explosive, highly valuable training stimuli. And so, yeah, I think we should view linear sprinting as general athletic development, the same way we view squatting as general athletic development. Man. It's the same concept. So yeah, sprint, jump, change direction, get strong. I guess bounce would be the other one, right?
Yeah.
Which is somewhat different than
But you brought
jumping.
up another good point. I think this is part of your pyramid, though, that we do this high intensity stuff a lot and don't get the volume of the submaximal effort, jumping, bouncing, changing directions, things like that. That the kid will just sit around and not do much anything, go in and do 4 or 5 really intense sets of a broad jump or a vertical jump. But they, back in the day, they were running, sprinting, tumbling, jumping over obstacles. And the vast majority of those were submaximal effort.
Yes.
I think we can understand. It's funny because strength training and jump training, there's a lot of correlations there. You don't just go in the gym and just max out once a week.
Right.
There's a lot of submaximal efforts, and we see, like farmer strong, like very rarely are they maxing out, but they're expressing strength daily, and that makes them generally stronger even for max effort lifts, But we don't understand that also counts for general athleticism, jumping and sprinting and hopping and things like that, right?
Yeah, and I think, it comes from the training program concept, right? Like, okay, if I want to make a training program, it's like you don't tend to program play.
Yeah.
Program, like you're out running for a while.
Yeah.
Like you sort of skip over those things, and it's, okay, what are the exercises we need to do?
Yeah.
And so, it's like, we're doing some short, fast sprints. We're doing some intense jumps, and then we're doing some strength training. And it's like that type of program is good.
That's supposed to be just the icing on the cake.
Right. But it's supposed to be the complement to your whole foundation.
Yeah.
And so again, it's one of those things you uncover over time where you realize like, oh yeah, so this kid was doing all these good things, but then they were just like at home on their iPad the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And so
that kind of goes back into my program too, because, people like to say, they look at the weird shit that I do and they're like, why are you doing this? The basics work. I'm like, well, the basics do work. And the basics used to be just fine because we used to be functionally fit individuals that went out and were just active on a day. Like a construction worker doesn't need to do my flows.
Yes.
He can just go bench, squat, deadlift and be just fine.
He's got tons of variety and volume already.
He's on the frontal plane, the transverse plane. He's doing unilateral stuff all day long. He can just add general strength. But we have no frontal, stimulus, no anti-rotation stimulus, no, transverse plane. So like you have to add a little bit of that in to make up for your, and ideally you wouldn't have to do any of that because you're just a very, if you're out climbing mountains and chopping wood all day, no, don't just bench, squat, deadlift, do some chin-ups. You'll be just fine.
Yep.
But we don't have that anymore. It's a weird problem, Yeah,
it just goes back to that, like the specialization, but then also just the sedentary nature, just people being raised on screens and stuff like that. It's like you lose that foundation. And so, it's not that squats don't work or cleans don't work or jumping doesn't work or linear sprinting doesn't work, but it's like I said at that post I had with my pyramid. It was like, okay, so 20 meters by 6. It's like it's a good acceleration session.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to work a lot better with a kid who's in a sport running all over the field the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And then he comes in, he does linear sprints to get some like high output.
Yeah.
But the 20 meters by 6 by itself, limited.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough volume, not enough variety. There's not going to be as much motor learning from that as there is from playing sports all week and then doing that.
It's funny because the stereotypical, for us white people, the stereotypical inner city black kid, that gets a lot of their athletic ability gets attributed to their race, right?
Right.
But it's like you look at how they live, or used to live. It's like they are playing basketball for 3 hours a day. And then like they'll have like a, dunk contest or something. So you get that max effort, a little bit of that. And then they're having foot races. So they get max velocities. And then they will wrestle their friend. And so they get some of that. It's like, no, their training program, even though it's not structured, was actually pretty darn good.
Yes.
And then they're lifting with their cousin in the backyard or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like where our kids sit on the couch all day, then we go do our 6 broad jumps very scientifically, and our 6 single leg hops, and then they go sit on the couch again.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like you've identified a crucial missing piece that so I have my own fitness pyramid that goes over different stuff. So I love pyramids and structures. I loved your pyramid. If you could talk to that for a little bit.
Yeah. So it was, it was on this concept of like, what's the foundation versus what is the complement? What is the, what's the training program going to cover versus what are other things going to cover? And so it was just a triangle. The bottom tier was diverse gameplay and movement challenges, I think is the phrase that I put in there. And yeah, it just speaks to exactly what we're talking about, where it's the childhood neighborhood sports approach. And yeah, like what you were just talking about, it reminds me of my childhood. It was basketball in the alley. It was playing pickle with a baseball between two trees, right? Sprinting back and forth. I used to go toss a ball up to myself and hit it with a bat. And then I would go out and I would try to golf with the baseball bat, the ball's back towards home plate.
Hand-eye coordination, things like that.
And I would just do that by myself.
It's like the basic movement patterns that we just kind of know from childhood, like teaching a kid to throw a medicine ball against a wall. It's just crazy to me. And just like you're bored and you're bouncing the ball off a wall and catching it, what I mean? Just like stuff like that,
Yeah, so like neighborhood football, 500, right? Throwing the ball up, call out a number, whoever catches it gets that
It also
number.
gives you repetition and competition too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of like, low-level competition. You're always competing daily,
Yeah, even like the indoor basketball on the little mini hoop on the door. I mean, I did that.
You're in your room,
hours.
thousands of reps, right?
Yes, hours. And then even I remember in my basement, like, I was like jumping from over here, like finger rolling, and then trying like landing on the couch.
Yeah,
just like hours of that. While like an actual basketball game was on the TV or something.
Everybody asks me what I do for my 9-year-old, and they think it's gonna be some scientific thing. He's not.
Yeah.
He's great kid. I love him so much, obviously, but he's not naturally gifted athletically.
Right.
I just have him run obstacle courses.
Yeah.
I just set him obstacle course and just time him and let him figure out. And I don't like overcoach him. He's 9 years old.
Yep. That's money.
I see these parents, they like will drive an hour to take their kid to a specialist. I don't want them to stop doing this because it's how we make a lot of our living.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's a basketball camp. It's about repetition. They'll stand in line and they might get 3 instructed reps or something bouncing. Whereas like, just go play pickup basketball.
Yeah.
And get the reps in.
Yeah.
Let them, a lot of times, like, just let them figure it out. A kid will figure it out if you just let him get enough reps, or her get enough reps in. And they just don't get enough reps. I look at like HCI or wherever else they go, and the kids, most of the time, they're standing in line waiting for their turn.
Yeah.
Where pickup basketball, you're moving, like you're reacting to stuff the entire time.
Yeah. Or just take your ball at home and just dribble in every which way you can. I mean, it's, there's definitely a question on, how much value are you getting from this large group environment where you, like you said, you do a rep every few minutes. But yeah, so that diverse movement challenge gameplay, that's the foundation. And yeah, I think that's missing from a lot of kids' lives now. And then it's also missing from people like us, like our communication.
Yeah.
Into, because again, it's like, well, no, I have this program, has a list of exercises that I want you to go through. It's like, yeah, that's good, but it works a whole lot better if the person has the foundation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was kind of the major point of the pyramid. Then from there, the next layer was submaximal running, jumping, throwing. And somewhere in that post, I made the point that, if you look at MLB pitchers, you look at high jumpers, you look at the best dunkers in the world, like I'm in the dunk community, right? You look at, sprinters even.
Yeah. It drives me nuts when people say something like, unless you're sprinting, and they put an arbitrary number above 95%, you're not making yourself faster.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, so that applies to weightlifters then? If they're not squatting more than 95, then everything else is just a waste of time. There's no benefit to that. You look at Usain Bolt, you look at any good track athlete, their practice, 99% of it is submaximal effort.
Yeah. So that was the point. It's like, if you look at the course of their career, how many of their throws, their jumps, their sprints were maximal effort? And probably if you went back and were able to somehow quantify that, it would be a low percentage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the dunk community, I thought about this for a while, and I was like, is it true for the dunk community? Because you pretty much like, if you're dunking, you're jumping as high as you can, but it's not actually true. No. So first of all, you got to imagine a lot of these guys have spent a lot of time on a basketball court, like shooting around, doing layups, that type of thing. So they got a lot of that background. But then also, even if you're going there to dunk, there's a pretty big warm-up process, first of all, where you do a lot of submaximal jumps and you kind of ramp things up. And then even within your dunk attempts, you have a lot of the dunks, if they're a little bit more complicated, it turns into at least a slightly submaximal type of jump.
Yep.
Not everything is, maximum speed approach, jump as high as you can and try to hit like the vertex or whatever. Yeah, a lot of those dunks end up even being slightly submaximal. So, and then if you throw in plyometrics to that category as well, then obviously plyometrics have a ton of submax. So, yeah, I think again, there's what you communicate, or like what athletic development coaches tend to highlight is like, oh yeah, we did hurdle hops today, or like, yeah, we did the broad jumps today. Okay, and you did maybe like 20 total. That's good, but the other like 200 to 300 jumps that happen during the week are actually, like where a lot of the training stimulus is going to come from versus just that maximum output.
You know what's funny is distance running community is going through kind of the same thing now. Is they're having to really fall back on the LSD runs, to run slow to run fast.
Yeah, okay.
And because guys would come out and they'd always like push their zone 4 and try to beat their 3-mile time, and you have to go back to what they did back in the day. And they're starting to remember this now. It's like, no, a lot of your volume is zone 2, submax, longer runs. And there's a saying, and it's true, run slow to run fast. You know what I mean?
That reminds me of, Steve Magnus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's big on that. He's like, you got to increase your easy volume over time.
And that counts for speed, strength, distance running.
Just across
it's true
the board.
Across the board.
Yeah, I think he's got a philosophy or like a little mantra. It's like, train often, sometimes hard.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to put it.
So, so it's been something again that I've been trying to communicate and then also utilize with the athletes I coach in person, and with I have some remote clients as well, and I've also tried to put it into my programs. It's just tricky with the programs because we're talking like non-custom, right? Like people just buy it and use it. Well, you don't know what that person's all doing, and so it's hard to say what to put in there exactly. But yeah, so like the jump science programs, for example, have easy running in them, and what I tell people in the like the video or whatever is I'm just like, yeah, just think of this as plyometric training. It's easy plyometric training. You're getting lots of foot contacts. Yeah. And that's going to support your spring, your bounce.
I always tell people when they first start, when they do their warm-up jogs, I'm like, don't think of this as a plodding jog. These are like mini bounds. They're mini easy bounds, and just do that. Like a bounce. I always call them bouncy jogs. Just do a bouncy jog. And they're like, what? Or shouldn't you use some scientific term with me? Like, no, do a bouncy jog. Like, okay. Because you're doing a lot of easy plyometrics. And if you do that every day, it's going to help you.
Yes.
One of the biggest things I learned from you, you open my eyes to it, is like the benefits of like low rim dunking.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's like, how do I get my kid to jump higher? I'm like, do you have a basketball rim at your house? No, well, get one and set it on a rim, because they can't. How are they going to practice dunking if they can't dunk? Because dunking isn't just jumping. There's a skill to dunking.
There's a whole,
and you need to practice your skill. So get a room, and like, there's not a specialized exercise I'm going to have your kid do.
No.
It's practice low rim dunking, and like I saw you, doing that with your athletes, on the side. I'm like, man, that's freaking genius. They're getting rep after rep, and they're practicing the skill of getting off the ground,
And to be clear, it's not with basketball players.
Yeah.
It's with everybody.
Yes. Oh no, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's another thing I didn't bring up with the dunking and the maximal versus submaximal. It's widely used practice now in the dunking community to low rim dunk. And that means like it's intentionally not jumping as high as you can. Yeah. Right. It's the rim is 7 feet. You don't even want to jump as high as you can. Yeah. Like it actually just gets awkward if you jump high. So it's like, no, the point is it's like easy jumps, and then you're practicing the dunking skill.
Yeah.
And again, that adds to that sort of that submaximal volume that we're talking about.
And then everybody wants to start dunking with a full-size basketball. Start with a racquetball. You know, start with a softball, whatever you can manage to get the pattern right, and then increase the size of the ball as you go.
And do it whether you're interested in dunking or not, or whether you're interested in basketball or not. Like, just go do it because you're trying to be an athlete. It's athlete first.
So what's the next level to the pyramid?
So then from there, it was the maximal sprints, jumps, plyos. Throws, I guess. I don't remember. Maybe I didn't put plyos in there. But anyway, maximal sprints, jumps, throws. And so then, it's a pyramid. So the pieces are getting smaller. And so it's roughly a decent reflection then of
volume time.
Submaximal is a little bit bigger. Yeah. Maximal is smaller. And it's a good piece. It's an important piece, but it tends to be like the only thing that we highlight when we're like
Or the thing above
making
it.
content, or the thing above it.
That it's just like my pyramid where like, supplements and hormones is at the very top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody asks me about, followed by specialized techniques. Like what's the weird exercise or what's the drops that you're doing?
Yeah.
Which is like the least important part, but those are the two things I get asked about. Like these two things are the least important or should be done in the least amount of volume.
Yes.
And these are the things in this order that people focus on the most.
Yep.
And then the top of the pyramid is what?
The top of the pyramid is strength training. Yep.
Yeah. And I love the weight room. I'm a bodybuilding guy, and I will acknowledge this. Strength training, of all the things listed for general athletic development, unless strength is a definite limiting factor, and I'm talking like they can't do a walking lunge or one pull-up or one push-up, then you have to focus on strength. But if they can squat their body weight, which is like if they weigh 150 pounds, if they can squat 150 pounds, if they can do a couple chin-ups and 10 push-ups, then strength training does not need to be your primary focus.
Right.
Right. That's my opinion anyway. Like, unless the world is so heavy to them that they can't express their athleticism, then you're absolutely like strength training is not the foundation of your athletic development.
Yeah. So I would say largely agree. I actually have an athlete that we've both coached in mind when you're talking about the world being so heavy, and I won't name drop because I don't want to, talk about him. But it's like you have a tall, really large, young athlete who struggles to do a bodyweight lunge. I've told him, I was like, if you get better at anything, you're going to get better at everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's you sprint and you get faster from that, it's going to make you stronger.
Yes.
You get better at squatting, you get stronger there, it's going to make you faster at sprinting. Like everything is going to make you better at everything. But yeah, so someone like that, it's like strength training can have a huge impact. And I will say, like, there is contexts in which strength training can have massive impact, and that might make you think like, oh, this is the thing that's going to take me to the top.
The key word though is context.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, it was like I was saying before, if you have somebody with good athletic background, all these diverse movements, they've jumped and sprinted all this stuff, and they haven't strength trained, and now you add the strength training, the early days of doing that are probably going to produce some pretty great results. And we all have those anecdotes, and that's great, and we acknowledge that. That doesn't mean the next 5 years for them are going to produce the same results by just getting stronger.
Diminishing returns.
Yes.
Who's this? You might know her name. I'm having a mind, but he's a very good, I think she's a 200 meter and 400 meter specialist. And she had never really strength trained. She doubled her deadlift weight, and it took 0.3 of a second off of her 200. So she had to literally double the amount of, with zero strength training background, mind you.
Right.
She had to double the amount she could pick up off the ground to take 0.3 of a second off her 200. And they were like putting that up like this is a, it's a great example of how weight training can
case
revolution.
study, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it took 0.3. She had to double her strength basically to get 0.3 of a second off her thing.
Yeah.
While she was concurrently training for sprinting. So I don't know how much of that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's hard to attribute.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, then I would say still though, like you might have periods of time where you want to focus on strength training.
Yeah.
If we go back to the track athletes, typically there's a sort of a yearly plan when it comes to, at least at higher levels, like trying to get somebody better for the next season. And yeah, the early off season is a good time for them to focus on strength.
But the key word there, you said focus. So it's like you don't completely neglect your sport or other activities.
No.
I feel like that's where the Soviets knew this. Like they didn't ever completely neglect anything. They just focused on different things at different times. Right?
Yes.
For me, the biggest impact I see with young athletes with strength training is it allows them to execute the mechanics better. Like they're limited in their ability to execute mechanics by their strength sometimes, or like to stabilize their core. If their core is too weak or their hip flexors aren't strong enough, they literally have a hard time pulling their knee from behind their body. Like that, to me, and it's usually in the first few steps, like just getting off the line, achieving like the angles that I want them to. And then that's a big cue to me, like this athlete needs to get a little stronger because they physically can't do the mechanics that I'm asking them to do at any speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But great points there. I love the pyramid. Completely agree with it. Let's go into, because I don't want to neglect this. You talked about the difference between force and strength, and that's a very intriguing topic that I think people find interesting. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So there's fairly widespread knowledge now about ground forces during athletic movements, right? So people love to talk about, elite sprinters apply 5 times body weight to the ground during max velocity, or your jump height is going to be determined by your vertical ground force, and it needs to be, 6 times body weight, whatever. Or triple jump is like the extreme example where it's, oh man, this one elite triple jumper in some study apparently applied peak force of 22 times body weight to the ground during their triple jump.
So if you just make that athlete really strong, anybody can do that.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so people like they sort of understand the ground force thing, and then so they jump from there to therefore athletes need to get really strong, and strength does not equal force is the the thing we have to keep in mind. So first of all, anytime you're talking about force, you have to think about, well, what force are we talking about? Because there's a lot of forces involved in the movement of a human body, right? So the things so far we talked about ground force, okay, that is not the same thing as muscle force. It's not the same thing as what's going through your tendon.
That is the sum total of all the expressions the body's doing that resulted in that number.
Yes.
Not
yes.
how much force one muscle is putting out over a period of time.
Right.
Which strength is like, it's the force of your muscles exerting on a load over a period of time, first of all, altogether, right?
So yeah, it's the high force in a sprint or in a bound or whatever, it's a product of the mechanics of the movement, right? So anybody, you could be a terrible athlete, jump from 3 stories down to the ground. Well, you're going to apply a whole bunch of force to the ground when you land, right? It's a product of what you're doing more so than a product of like, oh, I'm just really strong or something. So it's not a reflection of, well, this is because I can squat, right?
On average, during a top speed sprint for an average sprinter, how long is their foot on the ground?
Average would be more like that 0.12 to 0.15 range.
Okay. So they have between a tenth of a second and 2/10 of a second to apply whatever force we're going to measure.
Yeah.
And anything that doesn't get applied in that just doesn't get applied.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, then you go from there, you got to talk about like specificity, where applying force to the ground in a sprint is very, very different from applying force to the ground in a squat or in a deadlift.
So when we're measuring this force too, it's vertical force, right?
Yeah, that's generally what people are talking about. If we were talking about deceleration or something, then that's where, or acceleration, for example, then the horizontal force would be more relevant.
So vector matters though.
Yeah, for sure.
So if an athlete is applying force, but it's not vertical, it's the resultant force they're calculating, which reduces the amount of force that's being measured, right? It's getting dissipated in vectors that don't help or actually hurt that athlete.
Yes, generally it's just the vertical force they're talking about. So it doesn't necessarily encapsulate everything that's going on.
So if you're running 15 miles an hour and you're not putting that foot vertically into the ground to at least keep your speed, whatever force you're putting in the ground isn't measured for one probably on that force plate, and it's just hurting you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if your mechanics aren't right.
Yeah. It's valid. They do have force plates that measure the horizontal as well.
Okay.
And while maintaining speed, the horizontal, the braking and the propulsion are relatively small compared to the vertical force. So people don't tend to talk about those as much. But yeah, that's certainly a relevant piece. We are talking about horizontal movement, so obviously horizontal forces are are relevant. But yeah, so there's this gap between the force you apply during an athletic movement and then how much you can lift. And so I think where it gets confused is if we are looking at maximal muscular force concentrically, or while muscle is shortening, heavy lifts are where we do that at the highest level. Or it's certainly where we do it for the most time, so that's another tricky aspect of it is the peak muscular forces during these dynamic movements can be extremely high, even though it's not slow concentric. Yeah, it's not an easy thing to measure, but they do research, and it's things like we got people sprinting at 9 meters per second and the peak force in the hamstrings is like 7 times body weight, or even the peak force in the hip flexors is 9 times body weight.
Well, that also goes to show you how strength training is a limiting factor in athletic, because there at no point in time on any lift are you're going to achieve a force during a normal gym lift that's 7 to 9 times body weight. Not on the concentric.
Yeah, not on the concentric. And and it's probably more in that isometric-ish, like quasi-isometric, kind of that stiffening moment within the sprint or the jump or the plow or whatever is where those high forces are happening. But yeah, so we have the force velocity curve of muscle. And yes, on the left side of the curve is the slow concentric, and that's where the force is maximized. If we just ignore the isometric and the eccentric, then we say, yes, strength training does exist on the high force part of the curve. And so that's where strength training is high force. But that's just one specific context, one specific way in which it is high force. So to be clear, like increasing maximum muscular force, like strength training definitely does help us do that. And that's good, and it's a part of our training process. But getting stronger and increasing your maximum muscular force in a lift is not the same thing as applying more force to the ground in a sprint. There's just a huge gap there. And so then this comes to the training transfer topic of, yes, sprinting is, in obvious ways, it's very, very different than squatting or than deadlifting or than split squatting or whatever. Pick a lift. It's very, very different. Can we get transfer from those lifts to sprinting? Yes, but that's not a guaranteed thing. Sometimes there's transfer, sometimes there's not, sometimes there's detriment.
And there's not a guaranteed correlation. You can't promise you get 50 pounds, you're going to take off this amount of your speed.
No.
And you mentioned sometimes it's a detriment.
Yes.
I found that to be true too, especially with very strong people sometimes. You know what I mean? They get stronger and then they get slower.
Yep.
I remember reading an abstract of a study one time that showed that like weight training actually slows down your rate of force production to some extent.
Yes.
And then you have to train, but it increases the magnitude of that force production. So it actually, experienced weight trainers actually take longer. Like the curve isn't as steep. It's just it's a lot higher.
Yes.
And then they actually have to train to get that curve back to the left. And you can kind of see it. And now this can't account for it totally, but like in bodybuilders and stuff, like because they just don't do any training to get that curve back to the left for the rate of force production. So when they sprint and jump and move, it doesn't get expressed into the ground because there's not enough time for them to do it.
Yep.
And I think that's important to remember for these athletes that chronically weight train with no breaks. Like, are we ever taking time to get that curve back to the left?
Yeah. And so that's why, and that's a very thoroughly documented phenomenon in research. It's not like just one abstract that you read. It's like, it's that always happens, right? If you just strength train, it does slow down the beginning of this would be like an isometric force curve probably, or depending how they're measuring it. But yeah, it slows down your rate, but increases your maximum.
And if you only have a certain amount of time to express the force,
then it can be negative.
Yeah.
And so that's why, one, you do the concurrent training where you sprint, jump, and lift, and you don't let lifting become too big of a portion of what you're doing. But then it's also why, like you said, you take time away, or let strength train more here, and then let's do it less here, or let's do it in a way where we can just kind of maintain things, and then we can maximize the rate of force development instead. So yeah, you use those strategies in order to get that transfer.
I think that's one thing we can both agree on is like if we look at the school training, like they don't give these kids long enough breaks away from the weights.
Yeah.
Like there's never a planned time. Like these kids are not going to lift for these 3 weeks. Like they're lifting every week. I mean, I lift every week, but I'm not trying to maximize my athleticism.
You don't have a football season coming up.
Yeah. Like I remember when I was preparing for one of the Austin's Fittest, and I did this as an experiment. I was like, 10 days before the event. So I tested my vertical every day over those 10 days. And 10 days away, my vertical jump was like 27 inches. And then like 7 days, it was like 29 inches. And I was also tapering back on my weightlifting over that time to where the last 5 days I did zero weight training, right?
Yes.
And between 10 days and the day of, my vertical went from 27 to 36 inches over a 10-day span, just because I stopped lifting weights.
It's pretty wild.
And that's not even that's not sprinting. That's like a slower plyometric too, where I have longer to produce the force.
Yes.
But it's just you need to take breaks from weight training.
Yeah. So there's the competing adaptations element to that, and then there's also the fatigue element to that.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that, like when you chronically lift, you may not realize it, but there's actually a fatigue that happens sort of behind the scenes there. And there's, endless anecdotes of like, oh yeah, man, I was struggling to jump higher for so long, and I was lifting and I got all this strength and it was up, but it just wasn't translating. And then, I had a little back tweak and I couldn't lift for like 3 weeks, and then, my vertical shot up. It's crazy.
So I always call that my wisdom teeth PR. because at the kids' age that I train, they get their wisdom teeth pulled all the time.
Yeah.
And then they'll undereat because they can't eat, so they'll lose body weight, right? And they'll look smaller and weaker, but they'll detrain for like 2 weeks, and they'll come in, they always PR because you reduce some body weight. And you let yourself rest, and then they're like, I don't know how I PR today. I haven't been eating, and it's like, it's the wisdom teeth PR, man. Yeah.
Like, I have an explanation for that. Yeah. So it's not that strength training is not valuable. It's not that it's not important. It's just that it needs to have an appropriate place, and you need to manage it correctly. And, we can sit here and talk about this example, that example, but in the end, it's like, it's a thing you figure out as you go. Sometimes people just get stronger and get faster, and it's great, and you don't have to do much. But that's one of many scenarios that can exist. And so, this is not an anti-strength training philosophy.
No, I mean, you're a full depth squat kind of guy. You're an Olympic lift kind of guy. You just understand that there are limitations to everything, right? That it needs to be coupled and blended. Yeah, it's
interesting because I'm kind of an extremist, right? Because like some people, they have this conversation about transfer, and then they think like, okay, therefore quarter squats, therefore all our lifting is going to be explosive, so it's more specific. And to me, I'm like, well, now you're just not really getting the benefits of strength training.
Which is general adaptation.
Yeah, it's like, so no, let's do the general. Like, let's squat deep, even though it's completely non-specific to sprinting. Let's get our
Well, in the quarter squats, I mean, there's a time of year maybe where you don't want all the fatigue, but you want like the motor unit recruitment maybe or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where those can be applicable, I guess.
Yeah, so that would be, like I mentioned before, like let's do strength training in a way that we're just maintaining and not disrupting.
Yes.
And so, that's where some of that, the more specific, or I call it non-disruptive strength training comes in.
Because strength training, yes, that's a good way to put it. Strength training is disruptive.
Yes, potentially.
So we have to take that into account whenever we strength train. Like the disruption, like how that limits energy that we can put into other aspects of our training, the recovery time we're going to have from it. And sometimes like the most effective lift, if it's extremely disruptive, might not be the most optimal lift for that athlete at that time because of the disruption factor, right?
Right. But it can still have huge potential for their development in general, or like over time.
Yeah.
But it's just, I got a couple girls with the Junior Olympics coming up. And so the next couple weeks, we're not going to deep squat. It's just that, very basic level or very basic example there.
Also, I think you'll agree with this too, like be aware of the central nervous demand too, because even something isn't muscularly similar to what you're doing. Like if, let's say, a volleyball player has a game the next night and she does like heavy bench press or something like that, well, it might not affect her ability to spike the ball directly or jump, but if it taxes her nervous system, that could have a detrimental impact as well, right? There's more kinds of disruption than just musculoskeletal, right?
Yes, and especially the lower body, like the harder strength, like the big lifts, doing hard workouts on those is, it's like a tool you got to wield wisely. So you got to look at the totality of what everyone's doing. And I tend to think of like 2 high output type of days per week, 3 maybe. Well, with the kids, maybe more 3. Like they can handle
That's
that.
Another thing is people don't understand the more advanced athlete, right? The less volume and frequency they can handle.
Right.
Some of my really young athletes, they could probably squat every day because they don't have that output to really create that disruption that we're talking about, right?
Yeah. So I tend to think of like, okay, if any day that you're sprinting as fast as you can, jumping as high as you can, or lifting with high intent, like those are all high output days. So if we start stacking sprint session, hard lift, jumps and plyos, another hard lift.
Even though those things don't look similar.
Yeah. It's just the nervous system stress of that high output or high effort output. You can't just endlessly stack those things into a week. So you got to look at everything that's going on.
It's funny, if I have like 3 or 4 hard days in a row, it's like my light bulbs have been dimmed. And like if I go to like bounce and catch a ball, it's like I don't have the hand-eye coordination and stuff like that. It like affects me systemically. I can feel it.
So I had a squat project recently, like earlier this year, where I was doing squat singles like 5 days a week. And which sort of violates the principle. But no, the key thing though is it was like 8 to 10 total reps. And I was going up to like 85, 90% for
it's good. We can kind of experiment ourselves. It's not like I'm going to ruin a team's championship if I perform well.
Right. So I did this for a while, and had some success in the strength department, but yeah, there was this sort of fog that sort of creeps in over time. First of all, the first time that I sort of shut it down to rest was for a power snatch bet that I made with a friend, and I wanted to win this bet. So I backed off for about in the like 7 to 10 days before this day I had to do a power snatch, and I power snatched 250 and I won the bet. But then I went back on the squat project and maybe did it for like another 4 or 5 weeks. And I had a day that I was with Tim over at Nutrabolt, and I was shooting basketball on the court they have over there, and I just like could not get the ball to the rim.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I am so bad at this right now, and I feel like I have to, like really put my legs in just to get it there from a 3-pointer, get the ball to the rim, and it's like this feels really bad.
I notice it whenever I would train athletes and I'd be catching the football. Like sometimes I drop the freaking football.
Sure,
I'm like, what the fuck's going on right now?
Yeah. This throw has no zip on it.
There's a tap that they can do. It's like the finger tap test to touch and like you literally can't tap your finger as many times in 60 seconds.
Yeah, I believe
when your CNS is taking a hit.
Yep. But then I shut the project down again, and it was like a couple weeks into that, and I was recovering, and I had another day on the same court with Tim, and no one was. This was like me shooting around by myself. No one was on the court at the time, so I don't have any other witnesses. But like I went out there and I made my first 5 NBA 3-pointers.
Really? Yeah.
Like no warm up.
Yep.
And it just felt effortless, and I ended up taking half court shots that day because I was like, oh, this is fun. And at one point I made like 5 out of 7 from half
I
court.
do wonder though, if there's, you had that positive rebound on the other side. So if overreaching or whatever they want to call it with your central nervous system on occasion to create that detrimental effect, once you break, it seemed like it could come up higher in the other end, just like our musculoskeletal system.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. It definitely can work. Like the supercompensation can happen.
Even on a neural level with your central nervous system.
Yes. And I don't know if we have great ways to like measure and track that yet. I know we're trying.
I know when they try to measure it directly, it's like the opposite of what we think. Like endurance activity has a bigger effect on our CNS than strength training because it's measured directly, and it's like the communication between the CNS and the peripheral nervous system. So it's not maybe technically the central nervous system, but it's that feedback loop. It's the system together.
Yes, there's a lot of aspects in there, and I don't know if HRV is quite showing us that. I don't,
Well, they have the Bolt test and a lot of other things like if your CO2 tolerance, there's correlations. But for me, grip strength is a pretty good indicator.
Sure, yeah.
When my kids' grip strength is way down, they know their broad jumps are normally a lot lower.
Yeah.
Was it the Bulgarians? Who was the people that squatted at their max every day?
I think Bulgarian, the weightlifters probably.
Yeah.
Not the power.
I think they would find their max every day, right?
Yeah.
And so they use that as a example of how you can squat heavy every day, right? But if you read about them, they had to go through something called a dark period, which is it was 2 years of emotional and mental disturbances and general feeling of malaise as their central nervous system adapted to that constant. And they weren't incredibly more successable than the other nations that didn't go through that. They were successful, but I'm like, well, if you want to go through your dark period, you know what I mean? Like they didn't have a choice, but if you want to become like psychotic for a while, yeah. But I thought it was really interesting. And it's like something they joke about. Like I had to go through my dark period. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, I think. People always say they were enhanced as well, so they had some extra help with recovery in that regard.
Yeah.
So but there's that piece that's just, it's hard to feel it, it's hard to track it, but it's definitely just a product of consistent heavy lifting, and it's just that fatigue thing is.
And it's funny too because if you've done it enough, you can know the difference between a muscular skeletal type of fatigue, like just being sore, and being like having your central nervous system take a hit. Because if I do a couple heavy deadlifts, I don't really feel sore the next day, but I feel like my light bulb's been dimmed just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can pick up on it. Yep.
So before we run out of time, man, I want to talk about fascia a little bit with you.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot we can talk about, but let's talk about fascia.
I mean,
is it the secret weapon?
No, I wouldn't say that. So it's just a thing I've been looking into is, what does the science actually say on fascia versus what are the gurus saying? What are we'll call them exercise community leaders saying?
So how much can you toe curl is what I'm asking.
thousands of pounds.
Should be able to jump through the roof now.
Yeah, I mean, just without getting too long-winded about it, I just think the sort of the functional fitness niche, there is this, like, it's not just, oh, these people are idiots and everything they do is terrible. It's not that. I mean, typically, okay, you have fascia, you have slings, as tends to be what they're focused on, versus like, technically all our muscles, the framework is considered fascia, like the paramecium, epimecium, all that stuff. But typically they're focused on slings, and then they talk about gait.
Are you talking about like oblique sling and anterior sling?
Yeah, the
like
fascia
that?
slings.
Okay,
yeah, the back functional line, the front functional line. So fascia, slings, gait, like that tends to be sort of this area that they talk about. The product of that from a training standpoint is there's a lot of crossover between what they might do and what you or I might do, or like what, traditional coaches might do. And it's like, okay, do you believe in movement variety in the weight room? Well, yeah. Do you like to train movements of your spine, Judd? Yeah. You like to rotate? You like to side bend? You like to flex?
I must be a fascia guy.
You like to flex and extend? Okay, that's all good. You like to flow a little bit? That's all good. Like a lot of people do. So there's a lot of crossover there. Where it gets more eye-rolly is okay, this exercise, because the coordination sort of loosely mimics gait, this is going to make our gait better. Do we know that for sure? Or can you say, let's even say it does, or regardless, does it have anything to do with fascia? Do we know that?
I mean, those sound like hypothesis.
Right.
Has it been systematically, scientifically studied?
Exactly.
Peer-reviewed literature.
Okay, so you do this back functional line exercise. Do we have any evidence, or can we support the fact that that's important in any way? Like, okay, so we have dissection, and we found that there's this connection between muscles, like the fascia sort of connects this chain of muscles. Okay, so anatomically we can say that that's true. So does that mean that finding an exercise that works all these muscles at the same time is important? We don't know. It's a hypothesis.
And they're stating it with a degree of confidence that seems,
Yes.
That's kind of my deal with it, is the degree of confidence they say these things, rather than this is an interesting thing that maybe we should research a little bit more. So I'm kind of an anti-science back guy. But you're kind of refreshing in that, like, you kind of like use science for what it's meant to be, right? It's an exploration. And if anything, the more science-backed you are, the less confident you are saying something conclusively.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Without context. So that's my thing. They say it conclusively without context. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I mean, my question is, can you train a muscle without training fascia as well? That would be the thing. Can I, let's say I don't want to train my fascia. Is that even possible?
Well, again, the structural framework of the muscle is fascia. So in that sense, no. But if you were to specifically talk about slings, then you could say, and this is one of the things that they, tend to war against, is like, okay, well, if we isolate muscles then intentionally, then I guess we're not working the sling that
I think we can all agree that we shouldn't
them.
Just isolate muscles, right? That we should work them systemically.
That's another thing, right? So it's like, okay, so they criticize bodybuilding, they criticize isolation, and then they say, okay, well, you should only do this, that's detrimental. And it's like, no, now you're taking it too far. If you want to say
anytime somebody says you should only do something, I'm like, hold on. So even isolation exercises, like there's, active inhibition and things like biarticulate muscles. If you move both joints at once, the muscle, it's like why we need to do things like sissy squats and leg extensions.
Yes.
Like why, certain leg curls are valuable.
And building structure is functional.
Yeah.
Like all your muscle action is driven by proteins binding and generating tension. Like that. That's how you move.
One of my favorite things to say is a stronger muscle is inherently a more functional muscle.
Yes.
At least to some degree.
Yes.
It doesn't mean I don't think they should be integrated into movement patterns, but
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to say that we should not only isolate muscles, yeah, duh. Right. So again, there's plenty of crossover there. It's just, it goes to a place of like, no, now you're just.
It's like the go-to guys, man. It's like they will take a still shot of somebody doing something like Michael Jordan or somebody and call him WODA or whatever it's called. I'm like, really? Because he's like externally rotated or something when he lands.
Well,
like,
no, LeBron is the one that's a WOTA. Michael
because
Jordan,
he walks a little duck-footed.
yeah, Michael Jordan is their example of
Oh,
GOATA.
okay,
yeah.
okay,
So they love to highlight his inside ankle bone high.
Okay.
You know, if they ignore all the other still shots, but if they can find
that's the still shots drive me nuts. It's like, show me the video, and I can show you a dozen things he's doing right here.
Yeah.
Or like with the sprinters, like this sprinter will be running like a sub 10.500, and like when they toe off, their foot's externally rotated, and they're like WOTA. I'm like, that person's running a 10.5.
Right.
Like what?
Or the one great example is Jonathan Edwards, the triple jump world record.
He's WOTA.
There's a clip. There's a clip of him on the runway, and he just completely toes out.
Yeah.
And even toes out in the air, because they want the toes to flip in once you leave the ground, but he stays toes out in the air. And this is while accelerating into one of the greatest athletic performance feats that we've ever seen. And so it's like
300ths of a second later, his toe probably did turn in, and they just didn't show, or whatever. Maybe didn't. I don't know.
Right.
You can see when people at top speed, their feet flail out to the side at toe off. Yes, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
But if you look at the first step on like from behind on like 100-meter sprinters, you will see all different kinds of external, internal rotation at toe off. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
And so what they would say, or I guess if I can try to like give them a touch of credibility, be like, okay, yeah, so this guy's really fast, but if this elite sprinter played football instead, he'd be more likely to tear his ACL or something. You know?
That's another thing. It's like
it's mostly an injury thing.
You look at some of the best like athletes in the history of the sport have torn their ACLs. It's like, come on, man. It's like, all right. The last thing before we run out of time, speed development. Maybe this is too big of a topic to get in the last minute, but it is for sure. But there's a misconception that speed is inherent. Briefly, can you go over the fundamentals of speed development as far as the biomechanics that go into it and priorities of training without context? Maybe we should save this for another time.
All right.
Please.
Podcast number 2. Okay. So, the first place my mind goes is the foundation that we talked about. So submaximal running is actually going to be your foundation. And, being able to do lots of foot contacts over time.
We're not necessarily talking about saying, hey, Tim, go out and run 5 miles. We're just work on your mechanics while you submaximally run repetitively, maybe.
Yes. Okay. But even going back to the childhood thing, it's like, well, if you play a running sport or hopefully multiple running sports as a kid, that's actually a crucial element of speed development.
Absolutely.
So that then... Yeah, let's have the high quality, high velocity outputs, but just understand that that's a relatively small piece of it. If we look at a training week for a sprinter, for example, like maximal velocity or like maximal effort sprinting is a small piece of it actually. That's probably going to happen on 1 or 2 days of the week. And even on those days, it's going to be, it's going to be a small chunk. Like it might be, we did, 6 30-meter sprints or something. And even on that day, like, we jogged in the warm-up and we did a bunch of drills that were all submaximal and we did some easy plyos that were all submaximal. So even on that day, there's a bunch of submaximal to go along with the intense acceleration.
What are some very specific biomechanical things that people tend to do wrong when they sprint that are easily fixable?
I would look at posture and foot contact, and those are sort of, they're vital, but again, they're connected with also the physical traits of the person. And so there's sort of an artistic element of like, how do we coach this? How do we nudge somebody towards it? But if we're talking max velocity, then you want to have relatively upright posture and you want to touch down probably on your forefoot first. Again, there's nuance there though. If we have a big, heavy athlete, like we can't expect them to be on the forefoot. Like
I always say, if you take somebody and you put a 100-pound rucksack on their back and have them sprint, they shouldn't sprint the same way. You should heel contact in that case. And
trying to make them sprint with like, a Safa Powell technique would be outlandish with a 100-pound, pack on their back. So
what are some misconceptions about upright, good posture when people sprint? Because I feel like they feel like chest up, shoulder blades back, like Michael Johnson.
I feel like the misconception is basically, sort of that robotic-ish look from the front, like, oh, there's no extra movement, and everything is like
until you slow it down,
straightforward,
and then you see it.
Well,
yeah. Then it's really cool.
Look at it in 300 frames per second and see what it looks like. But then also, I guess, just the generic, like the knee lift thing, knee lift and like big arm action, I guess. Yeah, again, go watch a bunch of good people sprint, and you're actually going to see variety in there. You're going to see, certainly the arm swing, plenty of variety in there, and it's usually relatively relaxed and easy arm swing, and it can look different in different people, and that, it's actually the specific positions are actually not important. And so there's this, if they just fix their arm action, they'd be so much faster, and that's almost certainly not true. You can always experiment with it.
The only times I've seen that to be somewhat true is when a kid is focused on getting their arms up when they run rather than throwing them down.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to see that. Well, like, what are they doing? And I noticed they're focused on pushing high in front.
Yes, like lifting in front. Yeah, the elbow should actually get up high behind you.
Yes,
if anything.
Yes. And at top speed, your front side swing needs to get shorter but your backside needs to stay high. So if I see a kid with a big front side at top speed, it's kind of a giveaway that they're like lifting their arms instead of putting them down into the ground.
Yeah, like there's something probably too conscious going on there.
Yeah. Like you said, robotic.
Yes. But then also with like the knee lift and the front side versus backside, I think I'm still sort of fighting that battle in the speed technique discussions, where it's like I actually just did a presentation on this at the Coach 'em Up conference. Tim had me speak on sprint mechanics there, and that was largely talking about that, how there's a connection between how somebody looks in the air in terms of like knee lift in the front, things happening in the back. There's a connection between that and what they do on the ground. And there are different strategies that people use on the ground, like documented, data-driven or data-supported claim. There's different ways people run the same speed, like different people.
For sure.
And so you have to acknowledge that, it's the gravitational support challenge, right? It's how fast can I move and achieve
if they can
stay
achieve
on my feet.
Higher peak force in a shorter amount of time versus maybe not as high peak force, but keep their foot on the ground a little longer.
Yes.
Both can have their benefits, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's contact distance is this huge variable. And so, you have, data from this study, a group of quote unquote slow track athletes, and then a group of fast team sport athletes.
All of which are running faster than I've ever run.
The average speed was 9.3 meters per second.
If that tells you anything. If you know anything about speed, that's pretty fast.
In both groups. And but so in the two groups, they achieved the same average speed, but they had distinctly different strategies, and it was longer contact distance, and then also lower knee lift, a little bit more behind them.
Watson was a kid that kind of used to be lower in front but longer contact. If we've seen enough different types that we understand that inherently.
Yes,
it just takes a while for the data to catch up, and like we also understand like not to mess with certain stuff too much. If that's how that athlete naturally achieves their speed, getting them to artificially lift their knee higher isn't necessarily gonna positively impact their speed that much. And like it's almost like backside has become like a dirty word now. It's like I see a lot of my athletes that they don't have enough backside because of range of motion or whatever their limitations, whatever they're doing. Like if they have 100-degree hip split and they're only getting 10 degrees behind their hip, it's like, man, you're losing stride length because you don't have a backside ability to backside.
Yes,
right?
yes. And the foot should come up high after it leaves the ground, and it might come up high under the hip, but the vast majority of people, it's going to be kind of behind the hip, and it's going to look a little bit butt kicky, and that's actually a good thing. And we can point to plenty of elite sprinters who do that. It's not this thing that you want to be afraid of or you want to obsess over trying to eliminate.
I always tell my athletes, like, the time when it's kind of a red flag is if you feel like you're pushing on nothing behind your hips.
Sure.
If you're still trying to push after you toe off, but if you feel like if you feel like you're kicking mud on the person behind you, you should toe off right before. You should start to think to toe off right before your foot leaves the ground. Rather than like slipping out. That's why I like to have kids run in tennis shoes a lot, because they're forced. If I feel like they're kicking up behind them, it limits their ability to do that a little bit, and they're forced to recover their foot a little bit faster.
Sure, yeah.
But within that, man, there's a lot of different backsides out there that, no pun intended, but like, I see more often kids that don't achieve a big enough, as far as their femur behind their hip bone, that don't achieve a big enough backside more than I see over backside.
Yep.
And if I had to put a percentage on it, probably 70-30. It's like, man, you need a little bit more backside here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yep. Yeah, finish your stride.
Yeah, finish your stride.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, you can teach people concepts as far as, this is sort of a model for sprinting, and you can teach them that concept and they can understand it. But you just don't know if that's actually going to help them get faster. Even if it does, you don't know like to what degree that they're going to actually be able to execute it. And so, yeah, it's experimental
to me.
Yeah. And you got to have an open mind about what the end product is going to be.
Like what you said, if their strength is good enough to where they don't have to heel strike, you know what I mean? Because they're just too weak or whatever. I always look at how their foot's hitting the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like, can I make their foot hit the ground a little bit better? Like with a better vector, with more velocity. And then I work from there. And then if whatever I do doesn't improve that, then it's like, well, this isn't making you faster because it's not affecting how your foot hits the ground. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like,
and so that might be sort of the short-term conclusion. But then you say, okay, well, let's train for years.
Yeah.
Develop the physical qualities. And guess what? This technique might become more accessible to you.
Yes.
You might be able to do this at higher speeds. Eventually this technique might actually be the way you sprint naturally.
Yeah.
And so
yes, if you can change your ability to move your limbs through space quickly and things like that.
Yeah, moving your legs faster and increase your stiffness capabilities, like ability to bounce off the ground quickly. It's like if you develop those physical qualities, that has an influence on your technique.
Man, I think we've talked about this before. When I get really young kids in there, either a little overweight or under strength, and like let's say they're sub 14 or even into 15, and they kind of heel strike a little bit, or at least strike further back on their midfoot than I'd like them to.
Yeah.
When I first started to speak, I try to correct that immediately. But then I realized, like, for right now, they need a little extra time on the ground. And we can do some drills where we get them up on their forefoot more.
That's why I do shoeless warm-ups a lot.
Yeah, but with full speed sprinting, if I try to get them to artificially run on, it's just like the rucksack analogy. Like if I put a 100-pound rucksack, I would not run on the balls of my feet. I'd have to heel strike. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like certain things I just kind of leave alone and don't try to fix everything at once because you don't know what you're really fixing at the time.
Right. Yeah, it's a complex organism you're dealing with. So it's like,
I think we just confuse people a little bit more at the end and help them out. But maybe this is a topic I can get you back in here and we just talk about speed development.
We could absolutely do that. Yeah. That would be we could do a long one on that for sure.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But I appreciate your time, man. And I encourage anybody that doesn't know Daniel to go to Jump Science or Speed Science on Instagram. If you're looking.
It's actually, I have a new brand.
Okay.
It's 2X Athlete.
Oh, I've seen, too.
Yeah, so Speed Science.
So tell people where they can find you.
So jump.science on Instagram or 2X Athlete on Instagram. And then also 2X Athlete on YouTube would be the sources. Yes.
I'll let you, like, if you really want science-backed information on social media, it is absolutely some of the best social media content you can find. If you're serious about, if you're a coach or a parent or an athlete that's wanting to improve your performance, it's absolutely some of the best content on social media. So highly encourage you to go there and look them up.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, it's I try to have a marriage between the science and the coaching.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
I'm definitely not just like a researcher sharing papers. It's try to what does this mean for actually what we're going to do?
And that's that you can convey information in a way that's understandable to people. Legit scientific information put into context. So.
Yeah, that's the goal.
All right, thanks for your time, brother. Hopefully I get to talk to you again soon, and I'll see you at work, man.
Yeah, sounds good, bro.
All right, bro.